I was going to give just like an opening example of what kind of things we had in mind when trying to organize this discussion. Maybe we can tell you why we like badges, what do we find in badges. Elena put that question up there. Why have you chosen open badges? How did you come to know about them, and why do you think that they are interesting? Maybe that's one thing we can talk about. So again, just as an example, how we came to know about them. Actually, how I came to know about them through Elena. She was the one who mentioned them to me like 22 months ago about them. First I thought, yeah, that's badges, that's for computer games, that's an award for games. That was the first thought. And then I don't play computer games. I'm not that kind of a person, and I thought that's not for me. But then she went, no, wait, you can click, and that shows something else. And then it was another world. When I found out that you can click a badge, and then you can actually drill down the learning path of some, well, that was something else. That was more interesting. Then it was, at least in my case, it was that lady from Mozilla, Carla Casili. Maybe you know about her. Writes beautiful blogs about badges. And then through Carla's blogs, I found again the depth of that new world. It was really very interesting. And then over time, we started thinking what to do about that. At that time, there was an open call from the European Commission for project proposals, so we wrote one, and it didn't get accepted immediately. At first it was rejected, but then we were obviously shortlisted, and most probably that they got more funding for another one or two projects, and it got accepted on a second attempt, so to say. So last summer we got an unexpected news from European Commission that our project is accepted anyway, although on the first, I'll be quick. That was just good suggestion. That was just to let you know how we started with badges.
If you can say why we're using badges there.
Yeah, why we're using badges. Look, our project is about soft skills. Those things like communication,
so
negotiation.
it's an FP7 project?
No, it's not. It's lifelong learning project.
Okay.
And it's interesting how people can be good communicators or good presenters or have different other soft skills that are definitely very necessary and very important in this world, and we all know about that. But again, there are no, at least not in our country and probably not anywhere in Europe, there are no formal credentials for that. It's much more important now if you go and seek job in industry to be a good communicator and a good collaborator than your record from your university shows. I mean, it doesn't show, typically it doesn't show at all. So we thought that was a good topic for our project, and that's it. We only started like 6-7 months ago. We started with the project. Now we are developing our ideas, and it's interesting. It's interesting. We have good partners in the consortium, so it's gradually going on. Okay, I'll stop talking. It was really too long. So anyone else, can you just, in no particular order, just when you feel like jumping in, do it, and why do you use badges? Why do you find them attractive? Do you find any deficiencies or weaknesses in that technology and approach?
From my point of view, I really like the part of that it's more or less than specification, so some sort of specification and a standard is a way of also certificating a skill, and also the part of that you can include the authority who is issuing awarding the badge. I really like it because in that way, for instance, now we go everywhere with the huge diploma, and even you can relatively easy falsify the diploma. I never did it, but the point is that in a specification, from the specification point of view, we find a way of really finding also a way of validating all these certificates. I think that would be also a big step. Besides, it's a badge in the presentation or not, because also still I am a bit doubting if it really works, because your perception of games, I think that it's for everybody, and well, I mean, it's quite split. I mean, our students always say, yeah, we are at the university level, so why you are playing with us? So I think that it's difficult to overcome also that feeling. But yeah, I really like this part of certification, so the designing certification.
Although I have to say that later on, I actually realized that there can be kind of good games and bad games in this sense, because again, see those decks of badges over there, Nate's decks. If you play games with them, these are nice, creative games with badges. And to mention Carla again, she has that notion of learning pathways, where you can actually just drill down a certain pathway, putting badges here and there. That's how you use badges for your own creative mind games, not really in terms of those gaming industry, but
also even Duolingo, that it's really well spent. Also they use badges and they do the path, the learning path represented with badges. So I agree with that.
Cool. Go ahead.
About why. I did a presentation on wiki skills where I tried to explain that at every step of the human history, when we were speaking about information, and it was complex, and there were many stakeholders, we always arrived to the conclusion that the success criteria were sharing openly, confronting visions, and finding common standards. So it was applied to software, to hardware, to network like TCP/IP. It was applied to collaborative culture with wikis, and now it is applied to learning with badges. And the reason when I'm saying this is because, on my perception, it closes the discussion of the why. If we agree that when we are in a complex environment, we are anyway needing to share openly, we are anyway needing to confront vision and to find common standards. If we agree on this, it's not about open badge or not open badge. It's about verifying that open badge are sharing openly, helping us confronting vision and finding common standards. And this is why also a free license-based environment like open badge is prerequisite. If they change the license or if they don't include features proposed by users, there might be a fork or a new project. And I think this somehow simplifies this part of the discussion and helps us go further in the talks.
Don't look at me, just say something. Again, no formal moderation here, it's just...
So I can ask, does somebody wants to speak about the why more, or do you feel comfortable enough with my assertion in order to go further and speak about the how?
Well, I think that both things are important because if you want to persuade people, I mean to explain to people who are new to open badges and the whole idea and the idea of sharing and openness and so on, you have to have some kind of stable and well-founded arguments for that. Because for people who are already used to going to Airbnbs and things like that, they easily catch up on such things. But many people are still not in that area, and I think that that aspect of explaining the relevancy and I can even say persuading about the relevancy and usefulness and potential opportunities is very important. But of course, we can move further on and see how we can deal with it.
Because there are so many whys, and so it's not that easy just to close this item. So we got our hands into badges in a different context. So we were experimenting with what was this framework? Competitor of Foursquare, which has been shut down 2 years ago. Gowalla, which was more open because Foursquare from very beginning was kind of very commercial and closed, but Gowalla allowed much more flexibility. So we were building some prototypical outdoor learning games based on Gowalla, and Gowalla already had built-in system of badges, just like Foursquare has now. And it was I think long before this Mozilla Open Badges project started. So the concept of badges was already there, and but we saw this narrow context for it. And when we saw the first conference presentations about these open badges in the context of informal and formal learning, and we were kind of skeptical because from the pedagogical perspective, this is kind of replacing the kind of self-directed learning and deep interest learning with very kind of short-term and external motivation, some shiny badges. But then as we saw more and more serious papers about it popping up, especially I think it was last year's ECTEL's Best Paper Award, which went to the paper which studied the use of badges in the formal higher education settings. And then we started to be kind of more curious and considered that maybe we should test it. And then Hans presented our first tryout, and it kind of looks promising. So we're not so skeptical anymore. But it's definitely for us. It's not like the main thing. It's still like something we are just curious to experiment, and we are lucky to have students like Katrin and Delo here because they are educational technology students. So they are happy to be guinea pigs. So if there would be like mathematics or I don't know, physics or English language students, they probably would complain. But these guys, they're just happy to be part of anything new in the context of learning and technology.
I think a lot of people start out with that perception for motivation of badges as just the shiny reward, and that you'll maybe have a motivational potential of just that, oh yeah, okay, I'll go for the shiny thing. And when you learn more about badges, you realize that they can be very internally empowering for many different reasons, if they're structured well, and that they can open up new opportunities, but that they take, an experimental spirit and willingness to sort of try new things and put together technology that no one really knows how to use it very well in order to really access that kind of potential. There's like a lot of the projects we studied were trying to go out and find external partners who would promise in advance that they would value the badge. And almost always those conversations went nowhere, and they couldn't get anyone to promise that, oh yeah, we'll think your badge is valuable when people come and tell us. But it doesn't stop anyone from going and showing those people badges. I could put it on my resume and tell you that I have a badge, it means this to me, and then you can decide for yourself if you think right then that it's valuable. And that kind of experimental spirit of just going out there and showing what you have, I think that would be very highly respected in that kind of conversation. So we'll see.
Yeah, especially if it could be connected with some kind of mainstream CV application like LinkedIn.
Right, if you could actually build it into the technology where you have the viewing potential, and then we're trying to build some tools that will help with that. But I mean, you could put it in a Microsoft Word document and have none of that interactive feature, and then if someone wants to pull the badge out and actually look into it, they still would be able to. And eventually we'll get to the point where we have very rich understanding of what badges are inside those formats.
Does anyone in this room have an experience with how the world reacts to badges? If there are badge earners coming and showing some badges to someone else, what do they say? That's someone else, be it employers or maybe other teachers. What are the reactions? I'm curious to know, because we don't have experience of that kind yet.
Yeah, a lot of people are asking those questions. There haven't been any good research studies on it yet that I know of. I mean, there's a little bit of anecdotal evidence, but I can't even point to like one real story that's a good example.
For example, your novice bloggers in Sweden, did they have any experience with it? I mean,
their experience was that they were very proud of the badge. They put it on their website or the blog post, and it meant a lot to them, and it meant a lot to the people. We think it meant a lot to the people in the community who took part in the book, but to headmasters and so on. Our expectation is that they have been clear about it.
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't come so far yet, so in a year we maybe can tell you.
Yeah.
Who's the issuer of the badge? Who's the issuer of the badge in your...
It was the 4 teachers who
Four
organized the course.
Okay.
Yeah. And they, because they have been blogging and been active for such a long time, they have a credibility to award people. But people who is not, or teachers who is not involved in that community, they don't know about these 4 teachers. So, and my interest is mostly about this informal learning or use of badges outside formal institutions. And I got a bit of problem when these big institutions comes in and make lots of badges. What does a small badges created of by 4 teachers? What does that mean? And it's like it's been a small part of the. If you take like 10 badges in a course, and you get hundreds of badges during your studying time at university, what does these badges outside then come? What is it going to be? Is it going to be like what's going on in the MOOC discussions now, where these big institutions comes and call a thing MOOC, and what's going on outside the formal institutions, the CMOOC or the original MOOC concept is fading away. So, should we have different names? Should it be called the same if the formal institution use it, or is it going to come out to be a mix between?
You mean how to actually, those small badges, as you call them, that are earned in informal settings and awarded by group of experts in a certain area?
Yeah.
How
Experts or
yeah,
where-
maybe
where-
those
yeah.
teachers
Yeah.
with
They're
their
experts,
experience
yeah.
in blogging, we can call them, let's say, experts. Should they be at the same level as those, or the same kind, they would say, as those that are issued by, formal institutions like universities and institutes? Is that I mean...
Yeah, I have a problem with
yeah.
that, really.
Technologically, they could be the same. So
Yeah.
you can use open
Yeah.
badges infrastructure for both.
Yeah, I agree on that.
Yeah.
But
So it's just
when you show them to someone else, oh, it's a badge. Okay, you got hundreds of badges during your. I know what it is. I don't have to look at it.
Yeah, I think that there are different whys or functions of the
Yeah.
badges, and some badges probably should not be necessarily shown to anyone. So it's just maybe for collection.
I think earners will know when, well, hopefully. Well, we found a lot of earners don't really know how to use the badges and how to bring them into conversations, but it's really up to them, like what they think the value is and how that fits as they're, if they're using badges to tell the story of their entire experience. Whether they want to have the little tiny badge, maybe that one project was a very important thing, and maybe it connected to something larger they did in a different course, and so it would be useful to have a badge that had just that little thing, and then they say, oh, but I also got the big badge at the end of the course and this little one. Maybe that would make sense in one learner's story. Carla Casilli had one really good blog post in this February where she talked about what is the value of a low-value badge, and she thinks maybe over a long period of time, if you have 100 small badges, they can show sort of a long-term dedication, pattern of activity, where you've really spent a lot of time in a subject and you've accumulated a bunch of things. That can tell you something about what a learner has done, even if none of those badges themselves are very important at all. But it's the right question to be asking whenever you're designing a system is really like, what is the point of having, a bunch of little badges? What would someone actually be able to use this for? What claims that we're making here, what would be useful when we're talking about bringing badges to an audience? If I have a badges sidebar on my website, I probably only have room for maybe 5 or 6 before I can't have 100 because then just my sidebar would go on forever and it'd be all the white space.
Yeah.
That design.
Yeah, on the other hand, if you take a course that get PU, for example, you get one badge there and you get hundreds of badges from the university, and you can put it in the same record and it's the same thing, it's the same format. Yeah, then gives credit to the course at PU.
Yeah, and as far as what you name it, whether you call something a badge or you call something a certificate or something else, I think it's good to at least know that it's using the same technology, so if people will be able to know that they can add all their badges to the same repository and that they can present them in a similar place, and everyone will be able to tell that they have metadata in each of those, and it's all the same type of thing. But if it makes sense in one context, issuing context, to call one a certification because that state has rules about what can be called certifications, for maybe like CPR, first aid or something like that, you have certain names that are important to governments or contexts. You can still use that language also, but if maybe you put a little logo that this is Open Badges compatible, that people will know that they can use it with the interoperable open technology that we're building. So I got my intro.
So this is an open badge, open discussion. Yeah, that leads my mind to several mental associations. Like that one that I just highlighted over there. How many badges should we have? But that's, to me, a very interesting question. For example, for a course or for your teachers, or just if you exaggerate and have too many badges, that's not good, definitely. But do you, Alessandra, have an experience to this end? How many badges do you
Not
have?
a practical experience, but we are designing the system in which totally we have, I guess, 12 badges, because it's 3 modules per 3 levels, so it's 9 plus 3 other badges, which are like the social participant, the reflective participant, and the diamond, the final diamond badge, which is you're the best students in the world. So 12 total. But in my work team, I was the one that actually was skeptical about the number, the quantity of badges. I'm not sure 12 is a good number, because it should be, I didn't tell you this, it should be a 3 weeks course, maximum 4 weeks course, and 12 badges to me, it's too much.
Are they somehow chained?
I'm sorry?
Are those badges somehow chained together? So earning one in order to earn badge number.
We're still thinking about that, but basically yes. So you can have the bronze level of the module, and then the silver, and then the gold, or you can decide just to have the bronze. So you decide which is the competence you want to acquire, and then which is the badge you are addressing to. So yeah, in some ways they are chained, but still I think there are too many. I don't know, the point is that, as I was saying, in the end, if you have a repository where you put all the badges you have in the future, you couldn't have too many badges, because it's pointless again. I mean, it's meaningless. When you talking about the traditional ways of having a certificate, you go to the university, you do a certain amount of exams, but at the end you have one certificate. So, which is something different from this discussion, but you have the immediate possibility to identify that certificate. It's a unique piece of paper, 1 page. So if you have 100 badges, even when you apply to a job, you have 100 little pieces to be evaluated. Well, it could be difficult to understand who you are. I don't know. I'm skeptical about how many badges should we give to participants.
Yes, but different badges can have different roles.
Sure.
You can have 11 badges that are used just for giving students direction in the course, motivating them, things like that. And that 12th badge would serve as a kind of the thing that you want to put in your resume and your LinkedIn profile.
Right.
And present it.
Actually, in our idea of the course, we were talking about this during the coffee break, we were thinking of giving a badge for every formative assessment activity we are giving to the course, because it's a self-regulated course, and then participants should have a feedback from those badges, from their formative assessment activities they do. So probably it could also be thought this way. There is a badge, which is a packet of other little mini badges. I don't know how to say it in a better way, but it could be a hierarchy of badges, probably.
Sometimes called a meta badge, where you earn one for just the only criteria is that you've earned all 6 of the required badges.
So that could be an answer, I don't know.
But actually, is it a problem to have many badges? Because I thought that it is the huge advantage of badges that they prove some very specific small skills. That, for instance, when you complete computer science course, does it prove that you can program in JavaScript, for instance? No, it doesn't. Maybe you are supposed to, but I know a lot of students who completed a course and they still can't, but they pass the exam somehow, and the badge should show that actually you really can do that. And in my opinion, it's not a problem to have 1,000 badges. Of course, you don't have to show all of them.
Yeah.
You may choose, well, for instance, if you want to get a job in some, I don't know, internet provider, you can select the badges that could be interesting for such an employer. But I can see another problem that, because now the badges are not popular at all, but I guess that we all believe that they will be in a few years. And I'm getting to the second point about ethics. Don't they give an unjust advantage to people who have badges over those who have no? For instance, wouldn't be a pressure, for instance, on teachers that their students have 500 badges and the teacher has only 5 of them, and even though that they have so limited time, they will have to pass some courses to get some, to gather badges to confirm to their students that, well, I'm also good. I think that it may become, something which will be make people to put the pressure on people who teach to gather badges that just to show others that they actually have those skills. I see this kind of problem.
Well, I think also coming back to the other point, I think that in our experience has been a problem to have too many badges because the students also they don't understand all the badges that we have. And I think that also because this idea of badges also is goal oriented, so if they don't know that they can achieve this badge, why we have this badge? So if you have a long list of badges, you probably will have this problem of why, well, in fact they were really complaining, our students were complaining that we had too many badges. And we had, I think, more than 12, I mean, we were awarding these badges every 2 weeks, so also it was really overwhelming for them. But also about you say about this ethics problem, I don't see also the problem because we have currently we have LinkedIn profiles and you show all your certificates, you show your skills, so this pressure should be more or less the same. And if there is more pressure, it's because badges are working and they are really visual representation of the skills, and the people maybe now in LinkedIn they don't rate your skills. And with badges would be much easier to get the perception of what you can do and what you can. But I think that this pressure is social networks. Nowadays it's the same about social networks.
I don't know what your name is, but
My name is Jakub Spaka. I'm from University of Szczecin, Poland.
okay, thanks.
And actually, I'm not into open badges much. I'm here because I'm implementing a kind of LMS, and I just wanted to get some technical details. So forgive me.
We can discuss it.
Great,
And I love the idea to talk about technical details because I come from the technical background and not from the pedagogical one, so we can discuss that as well. But no, I like very much what you mentioned that well, like we may not be in Europe, badges are still not that accepted and as in North America, but it maybe in a couple of years' time that they will be accepted here. So it makes me think that maybe we still need to put some more efforts to create a community of open badges in Europe. Are we, maybe we in this room, are we the seed of an emerging community or part of that emerging community? As far as I know, there is a lot of people, I mean, just actually a lot of people interested in badges in UK, but in other European countries, there are just individual groups here and there, as opposed to North America, where I believe there's a big hype about that. That's my impression, at least. Whereas here, we know about UK, several groups in UK that are interested, but then again, few other groups elsewhere in Europe. So that's maybe an interesting question to think about. And yet another one that Jose mentioned, students don't understand what these badges are about. It's also worth discussing, I believe. Put yourself in the shoes of a student who comes to a course and you award the student a badge. What are, say, her thoughts? Doesn't she think, yeah, thank you very much, but what do I do with this next? Maybe that's also interesting and closely related to the idea of, to the notion of acceptance of badges. Because if students don't understand what the badges are about, how will, say, other stakeholders understand it? How will employers, how will schoolmasters and other people understand it? Does anyone have any experience like when you start working with badges, what do those decision makers in your school say about that? What do they think? Are they afraid that you are trying to ruin a formal, recognition system, or what do they say? Are there any experience? Or maybe you, Nate, have, when interviewing all those people, maybe you have experience of that kind. Can you share with everyone? Can you share?
In Switzerland, the way we created a Swiss coalition for digital learning, and many university has a special unit for online learning, etc., blended learning, etc., and they don't cooperate much. And moreover, when they try to go to each teacher, for example, from each department or from each section, each teacher says, my specialty is history or geography or health. I'm not specialist. Go to see the computer team. And the computer team is, it's not about computer, it's about learning. And so there is no place made for decision making. So we are facing some kind of a wall. So the way we try to break the wall is we try to find people who have been enlightened by the digital culture, who understand that digital ethnology and sociology is not a side activity or a complement, but is a prerequisite for learning today. And these people, our strategy is that we put them like falling into the soup, into the collective group, one after the other. So we have an individual strategy. We search for individuals who are aware. But when we try to speak to institutions, we always find a wall. They are afraid to take the decision. They don't have know-how, and they don't have even decision power, because it's the academic freedom. So we are facing an obligation to work with individuals and not with organizations, even inside the organizations.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question to ask, how will potential consumers for badges understand what they mean if the earners don't understand how to use them? Especially since there aren't very many network systems set up to understand badges. A lot of the onus is on the person who earns them to tell their audience what they mean, as in telling the story of their education. And so it's a great point. Like, And in the US, you're saying there's a lot of, understanding sort of building up in North America. A lot of that is coming from city governments. You've probably heard of the cities of learning with Chicago and Washington, D.C. and Dallas and Los Angeles now all joining the city of learning thing, where we found that that level of government is flexible enough to start a program that will connect learning across many different institutions in the city, and they can start building understanding of what those badges mean and how they go together by having all of them on the same platform, whereas when a badge earner earns a badge, it's already in a collection that they manage through the website for the City of Learning, and then that will show them what other opportunities are available for them to go earn badges, and then all of that will be packaged there. So all those different organizations that are participating already know what badges mean, and they can be the first consumers and sort of guide the earners in figuring out how to talk about their badges. And then you can do cool fancy things like analytics on it to determine what badges are most commonly earned together, kind of like the recommended product to buy after you buy the first product. It could recommend learning pathways, where to go next, and I think that sort of thing could help build this kind of understanding on both sides of the equation at the same time.
Maybe that's the first step to make, to approach city governments. That there are still politicians, still have power, but not maybe that much. If you go to ministries and high-level decision-making structures, then it's probably more difficult.
Yeah, in Oregon, we're having a little bit of success at the state level with the state governor's office and the, we're a small state by population-wise. We're not very many people really, so we're able to move a little faster than California would be able to. But I think for a lot of those other places, the city government is a really good place to go, and the mayors of the cities have a lot of power to start up a little program like that, just to organize the learning institutions, often in this more informal space, but also summer programs out of regular schools, and they can collaborate and coordinate their activity together, and then solve that technical piece on one side where you have all the badge issuing hardware running on the city side, so that the participating organizations only have to do something very easy to issue badges, like maybe write all the names on a spreadsheet and turn it in, and then maybe upgrade to have an automated website system do it for them.
What about the acceptance at even a lower level? Did you enhance have any trouble or misunderstanding here at this school with badges? Did anyone complain about that? Did anyone think that it was unusual, to say the least?
Yeah, as I told, we have a special case. We have educational technology master's program. So anything we would like to experiment with new technologies, even if it is could seem kind of illegal from our internal audit or quality assurance department, they just can't find out. Because our students never complain, because they vice versa, they enjoy all new stuff. But of course, if it would take only one student who would actually officially file in the complaint, and then the quality assurance guys, sharks, will step in, and probably there could have been problems if but we usually keep double bookkeeping, we have also the official side covered according to university regulations, so everything we do with this new stuff, for instance with the badges, it's in parallel. So if we would propose to kind of replace the grades with badges, of course we would be in trouble immediately.
And also, does anyone have any experience with acceptance of badges by industry? Employers, does that exist anywhere? For real? Not just...
It's the
Yeah.
I have some experience
points, but it's always in cluster-based industry, little organizations who work together. In Switzerland, we have groups who work the same way as GitHub in US, so it's peer selection. The employees choose their peers. It's not a recruiter who selects. So when they choose their peers, to convince their friends, they must use tools like open badges, because if you have 20 employees and they will select together a new employee, they cannot just say, I saw his CV, his curriculum, and I liked it. They have to demonstrate in details, so they need to go into details. And this is when it's about crowd wisdom that it becomes useful to use badges in industry. And we have this for software companies, for example, who are participative ones. There is quite a few in French-speaking countries. We have a web portal for free culture recruitment for employing people who are in the free culture. And in this portal, it's nice because people they don't use open badges. They use other simple soft skills recognition systems. But they do. They say, look what he did here, look what he did in this forum. And this is from the 90s. It's from 1990s. I started using this in 1997 or 8. Recruiting through demonstration of contributions that people have made in forums, in updating collaborative projects, etc. So it's old. It's an old mechanism. It's just the application to the ancient dogmatic academic environment.
Yeah.
19th century shock with 21st century, as Michael Wesch says in digital ethnology work. Maybe no, Michael Wesch, no? The digital ethnologue specialized in demonstrating the work of Marshall McLuhan, who was one of the visionaries of information society. And he's explaining that we are in the 21st century, but the academies are from the 19th century.
That's true.
Well, my opinion, I know absolutely nothing about open markets. That's really nothing. But my opinion is that here the concept of communities have to do. If the one who earns the budgets, or the one who's showing the budgets, is in the same community as the one who's seeing this budget, then it is possible for them to provide a lot of budgets. So because the other one is expected to understand them very quickly, or just with a quick view. But if you are talking with someone from human resources, or someone from your boss in a company, then you can't expect him to understand 120 buckets for you. You will only have to give him the truly remarkable ones. I understand. So I don't know if again, with this, how many buckets to have. I don't know if it has sense to have many buckets. Even 5 would be too many, I think, if we are going with this bucket to a company. How many buckets would I put in my CV? Maybe 2 or 3, no more. That's my opinion.
And one thing related to this number of badges, I mean actually not number but acceptance of badges, is their association with some competencies and competency, let's say, standards or specifications, something like that. So, I mean, I have just seen a couple of examples where people tried, I mean, the organizations for issuing badges are trying to make that kind of association with standards. And there is the typical question, so, okay, I have this badge, but what is really the competency or skill that is standing behind it? So, I mean, those of you who have already done some designing of badges or implementation of badges. Have you thought about that or something like that? Maybe in your course, I mean, the course that you're designing, trying to associate the badges with, you know, some really build competency standards or something like that.
Yeah, we definitely have this idea in our course. Because we have this education technology competency standards for teachers, and it serves as a basis also for our master's program, so we can clearly connect vertically all courses and the learning outcomes of the courses to this competency model. But for this first tryout, Hans was reporting today, so we didn't make it so explicit, but definitely would like to do it in the next round. So for us it's important, that, just as I said, because we have some people popping in only for some topics which are relevant for them. They are not officially enrolled as our university students. They might be professionals in the area, but I think that they would appreciate if they would get some, not just a badge, but badge which kind of demonstrates that they are high-level experts in this specific domain.
Mark, you're talking about some kind of national program. Is there any kind of international certification program that has something to do with open badges? Because, for instance, there is the European computer driving license, which is, I believe it's IFIC behind this. And would it be a good idea to, I don't know if someone here is involved in the program, but I think it would be a good idea to introduce the concept of open badges as kind of European level certification institution, and this way, of course, open badges could be popularized, and also more people would know what it's all about. I don't know if any of you have some experience with this kind of ideas. Nobody.
Mostly we've been fighting against these ideas. So, because we have some really active groups trying to push ECDL as a formal curriculum for informatics in primary schools or for teachers, and that this is a really bad idea. And so we mostly have been busy with demonizing ECDL.
Okay, sorry.
But yeah, it seems that there are some guys in Germany who have been trying to connect ECDL with open badges. So yeah, but there has been some attempts. Yeah, it makes sense. I believe it makes, because this is really the competence standard which is used across Europe. So it's actually recognized in most of the European countries. So it makes sense to connect it to open badges.
One of the members of Internet Foundation is the founder of the first chairwoman of Wikimedia Foundation. Her name is Florence Devoir. She's from France, but she was chairing the Wikimedia Foundation in the US since 2004 up to 2008, so at the moment where it was growing a lot. And she was facing the same type of challenge, and we speak a lot with our scientific team about generating trust, creating trust, and old powers, like for example hostel versus Airbnb, or ECDL versus open badges, or old powers like hostels or ECDL, they try to control by categorizing on an ontologic way instead of folksonomic way, etc. So it's not flexible, it's not a common standard that is admitted by all participants, and it's not citizen-based, because it's a decision that is made from a top, from a group that says, okay, ECDL, this is how it works. If you want to propose something new in the ECDL, we try. It's quite hard. It's possible, it's quite hard. And it's even ECDL, when they try to propose a generic domains. In fact, it's applied with specific software. You have a BCDL license for Word, MS Microsoft Word, etc. It's not flexible and adapted to the ever-changing world. So whether the paradigm shift is integrated into this old structure because they have visionaries and they are fearing to lose their leading position, whether they somehow they disappear and new groups come and take power, like Wikipedia versus Britannica or Universalis. And this transition is hard to manage. This is why we prefer to really encourage people to find, when they have understood this, they should really find people who are motivated and not try to convince anybody. It's easier to find people who have the good surroundings, environment. For example, people who don't know about OpenVAD but who know about Creative Commons, who use free software, who are active users of Wikipedia, but they don't know about OpenVAD. Or people who are working on 360-degree teachers' feedback in universities. We have teams of people who are working on getting feedbacks about the teachers from the students. This type of person, usually, they like to adopt OpenVAD or related tools.
Yeah, going to the topic, I recently read, it was an article from, it's a European association, non-profit organization. It's called Europortfolio, and they're suggesting something like Compedia, like Wikipedia of competences. And the idea is to have a kind of encyclopedia of competences that is definitions of competences that are widely accepted, and that would grow in a grassroots manner like Wikipedia is growing. And the idea is not just to have definitions of those competences, but also how those competences are mutually connected and things like that. But it was a post from I think December last year, and afterwards I haven't read anything about it. So
it was by Serge Ravet.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a francophonic group behind it. The Compedia is francophonic site.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you think that it was just a level of idea?
No, it's
Compedia
is already working.
It's working.
Yeah,
I couldn't find
but,
anything.
I don't understand French, so
Okay.
only in French. But of course, Serge Robert has been behind of this portfolio movement, and in France it has been really adopted widely, and on that foundation you can build something like this Compedia, but to extend beyond national borders, this is I would say too ambitious goal. So they even don't manage to agree on the definition of the competence on European level. So, but it seems to work in France or in francophonic countries.
It's based in Europe, but it's mostly adopted in Quebec.
Quebec? Oh.
Yes, because they are very dynamic in this issue. And although the Euro portfolio was a European program, to which, because Rajave is a member of our council also.
Mm-hmm.
And although it was a European program, it's mostly adopted in Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
We are rarely prophets in our own land.
But I have to say something else. I don't know Serge Ravet personally, but he was supportive of this, our workshop. He put an announcement of this workshop on one of his blogs or websites. Or he also organized another workshop on open badges a couple of months in London, UK. And I attended one of his webinars after which we exchanged a couple of emails, and he was really supportive of all this, I have to say. I mean, I don't know about his efforts to do this and his
Yeah.
success.
He's very well involved.
Seems to be very, very active. I also wanted to just propose to possibly try to be more creative, maybe we can have a kind of an exercise, no push-ups, no. But maybe, because I've been looking to this wall here, and I've been listening to what many of you were saying. I think it would be nice to kind of imagine and visualize and create a kind of a strategy of how to make an open badges story a success. Like, for example, there may be an enthusiast who likes open badges. We know of teachers who do. And then they want to promote the idea. They want to eventually come to a state of acceptance of the idea. By whom? Well, I don't know the answer yet, but a certain kind of acceptance. So what do they do? Look, what I mean is, these things are connected, I believe. This one, I mean, related to this idea, this thing here, oh yeah, this thing here very, very much. These things, they are very important, but not related to this strategy directly. But this is very related to this strategy. Yeah, this thing as well. And we heard recently in this discussion, maybe these two. So, can we now say, what is the first step if someone develops, say, a course in a school or in college, and then they want to award some badges? I think it's pretty obvious that they should be awarded in a way that complements the formal recognition system. Not really ruins it, but it just complements it. Otherwise, there's no success at all. But then, who would like to see those badges? What should students understand about the badges? What are the next steps? I think it's pretty clear that badges are a nice technology and approach that can care about one's learning path or pathways. But then again, who cares? All right? Because if that's just an experimentation that we like doing, well, fine, that's nice as a game to play, but we probably want to go one step further. I understand that you have a dashboard, not nice little tool that operates with badges. But then again, who cares? So what do you do in order to make at the university level, or maybe just at your say study program level, to make those badges and those tools accepted? So what do you think? What are the steps that must be involved in, and possibly in what order? We understand that it's a good idea to, at a certain point, go to city mayors and city councils and things like that. We also understand that it's a good idea to talk to other teachers. But maybe it's also a very important step to talk to students first. That's just my vision, but please go ahead, and I'll be your drawing guy. I'll be drawing the steps there. Okay, here is our enthusiast who wants to design, create, design, and deploy badges somehow. Okay, badges. Like that. So what does this enthusiast do first?
Partition is learning material in such a way to be able to explain each small part.
Okay, that's learning design comes first, in a way. Okay?
Yeah.
So, nice.
Yeah, but learning design is a broader thing. I mean, this is one part of learning design, the next part will be how to system badges.
What then?
Well, petitioning, learning content, and modules.
Partitioning, okay. Partitioning learning content.
But let me say that I have never used open badges, so or badges.
It's a
But
good idea.
I think that I am that guy. I would like to use
This one.
So that's why I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, this is what you suggested. It's fully in line with the latest findings reported by MIT. Is it MIT? I think it is MIT. Yeah. They actually said, you wrote a blog post about it. Maybe you should better introduce it.
MIT had a big institutional review panel that decided that one of the main recommendations they want to do to change the MIT education for the long term, like maybe like 2020, is to break down the course, the 16-week course, into smaller modules and be able to recognize, do this partition thing where they will say, what is the outcome of this module? Let us be able to record that separately and maybe even allow people to just sort of pick and choose what they participate in a little bit, but definitely in the credential, separate it out on the transcript or the collection of badges perhaps. And this is very, very related to open badges because the edX project, which is partly run by MIT, is integrating open badges into their platform. Some team members at Indiana University are doing the programming for that. And so in the next 5 years or so, maybe that'll feed all the way back into the MIT core, undergraduate courses where they will split them up a little bit more and do this partition where they can say, very much smaller learning outcomes that would add up to, a different, you could remix them into a different story.
It's full of your experience with those practitioners.
Yes, yeah. And, but I would even go further, so because this is only about the formerly enrolled students, so we are very much interested in using badges as an interface between people who are part of the formal education system and who are not. Both from the learner side, as I told, we have constantly some people who pop in only for one topic, and the main mission is, to share their experience or to learn maybe a little bit about the current state or academic perspective of the topic, which they work on an everyday basis and their workplace. So this is one perspective, but there is also another I didn't mention. I briefly mentioned that we got into this badges thing while designing some Gowalla-based outdoor learning games for institutions who provide educational services for primary and secondary high school students, but they are not part of the formal education system, like zoo, environmental education centers, some non-governmental organizations who are just, because of their mission, they are providing some, lifelong learning or informal learning services. But I see that these open badges could be for them a kind of interface through which they can connect their educational services to, for instance, official curriculum primary and secondary schools. And this increases the motivation of teachers, for instance, to carry carry out some educational activities in zoo and collect the badges and then maybe convert them into grades later.
Yeah,
So
Chicago Summer Learning.
So this is some kind of interfacing, like a translation mechanism for us. So if we are not so much interested to use it only for the formal context, only for our students. So it's kind of an instrument of opening up the closed formal education system.
Okay, I believe, looking at that board over there, that when partitioning the learning content as a side activity, we should also think about the number of badges. Okay, that's part of it.
And also
Not
purpose.
necessarily, excuse me?
Purpose of badges.
Purpose, yes, purpose and number. Not necessarily each chapter in the learning content should have a badge awarded for, but okay. So purpose and number. Okay. That's part of the exercise when partitioning learning content. Once we partition the learning content, what do you think comes next? I don't know the answer, I can only think aloud, but what do you think? Will you also please think aloud? What comes next? In order, again, don't forget the final goal. We want to make this badging experiment accepted by a certain community, okay? What does come next? Yes?
It's a question, in fact. Is there a kind of dimension of the learning work associated with the badge? Or we are free from making a badge that witness a skill which implied 100 hours of work?
That varies a lot. It varies a lot. You can award a badge for something like a very small achievement, like just registering for a say a forum or something, or you can award a large-scale badge for completing a certain course. So it's really very, very flexible.
So I would imagine I could have many small badges and some groups of badges.
Yes, yes, you can.
That
If you want to.
are related to a chapter.
This part as well. So how many badges? Number. Okay.
How many and their kind of composition, so structure, because there are different types of badges. We in several presentations today introduced different taxonomies of badges.
Taxonomy of open badges. Okay.
Well,
Again.
I would start considering the technical aspect of
Yeah.
the whole thing,
Okay.
because it changes a lot.
Here or here?
Well, I don't know, because I'm not comfortable with I would partly thinking about some aspects, because that's what we're
Well,
doing.
Well, it should be
So-
the next step, but it depends, as you said, on the technology. I mean, you can think of some kind of structure, some kind of learning design, but if it's not supported by tools, then.
Yeah, it's related to
Because it's something like in this way, it's a circle, so probably your technical decision could affect the learning design
Mhm.
or the way.
So should we maybe make a loop here, do it in,
Probably.
so technical parts, technology that goes here, and then we also do something like this
Like that.
a couple of times. Once we are,
Maybe also in the develop with the students, because
I was thinking of putting them here, because we have to do, okay, maybe maybe it can be somewhere in this.
mainly because, I mean, you can finish your process, and then at the end, the student doesn't understand the
Mhm.
badges themselves, so.
Testing would be good. Or
Yes.
if you iterate some new product, then
Yeah, yeah.
for testing, and then maybe it tells you go back to the circle, do a couple of more iterations, and then testing.
I like this idea, yeah. I think that testing goes here, and once we develop a kind of a prototype and we know that it works pretty much, pretty much stable way, then we explain to the students, the other teachers, the stakeholders about it. I mean, I'm just thinking aloud. Does that make sense?
Yeah, in some cases, we have here always this participatory design approach. We would like not just to test it and then when it's ready, we would like to involve different stakeholders at the early stages in
Oh yeah, but there will be a different, definitely there will be
Different size loops.
another loop here.
Okay.
But I was thinking about, an individual designer or a group of designers. They develop something small first in order to get a better understanding of what's going on. Yeah, testing is important for that. Yes, I experienced that myself, so I like the idea. So testing somewhere here, or technology and testing. Okay. And then once we get a good grasp of how to do it and what tools to use to do it, then maybe explain to the students.
Not only students, also the outside parties who should recognize it or promote or yeah. For instance, if you introduce these ECDL badges, that the employer should be kind of aware and accept this presentation of ECDL competencies instead of printed.
Okay. Okay. So, but again, I must say that I like very much Jose's suggestion that we explain to the students things, because otherwise we are lost, I'm afraid. So maybe explain to the students and then explain it to the other stakeholders.
Yeah. Also, it depends if the badges are designed for the students or for the employers.
Yeah, but this is if there are no outside consumers of the badges, the students' motivation drops significantly. I claim.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking of, if you explain something to students, you should also explain the value of these badges. And if you are not saying to them which is the real, concrete value of every single image, it loses something.
On the user perspective, anything you explain theoretically on what we have been experiencing generates more stress and more blockage than success, because it's again a very ancient academical approach where the teacher has the know-how and says to the student what is good for them or not. If at the contrary, the students receive a link saying, register and play and give us feedback, and it's intuitive and ergonomic enough for them to understand, and then only after they've done this, maybe they make again a diagnostic of how they of their know-how on the issues, and only after the diagnostic the teacher starts to become actually a coach and not a teacher. If we do this, on our experience, we have a lot more success. If we come with theory, they start to think that the teacher is bad. And if we come with, here it is, play, and we will coach you, they see the teacher as a real transitioner, a real facilitator, a real supporter of the self-learning culture that is a principle of digital environment. You learn by your own. We even say to the teacher first, we teach them first the RTFM, and then only we start the training. You know, we say, don't ask any question to the teacher unless you can find it. You couldn't find it on the internet in 3 minutes or 1 minute. So read the fucking manual. You know the RTFM? Huh? No? You know the RTFM? No? So we consider that a methodology where we explain anything is anyway a mistake. First, they need to touch, to use, to appreciate, and to play. And after they've played, in a totally chaotic way, we give some structure to the chaos, and we guide them.
In the interest of providing some structure, at that step, I like what Mark was saying about doing some sort of consuming activity within the system, so you can sort of teach students how to present badges by actually looking at the badges that they've earned and doing something with them. In some of the projects that we looked at, that was one of the ways that people actually learned, oh, that's what the badge means to me, is when they've actually gone and presented it in a safe environment that they're familiar with, not like in their job interview where they might be very nervous, but they actually talk to their teacher about, okay, now I'm going to present you what badges I've learned and do some self-reflection, and the teacher can give feedback on what they've done there, and it's a good step in rather than just telling to students, okay, this badge is valuable, you can put it on your job interview. That doesn't seem to help them. They don't know how to apply for jobs with badges. They don't, but if you walk through the process and do something where they actually unlock some value, then they have their first experience already. They can go out and try it again.
Maybe something like this.
Yeah, I mean, if the guidance counselor at the university will look at the badges they got from a course and help them figure out what next course to get by looking at the badges, maybe, that could be an example.
But I'm afraid now we
have to wrap up.
It's
time ran out,
of our time.
but at least formally the time ran out. Okay, so trying to wrap up. Maybe we should leave this scheme open, intentionally open, for everyone to just insert some other arrows and topics here. How to wrap up? I'm not good at that. It's.
I have a proposal. Let's organize OB workshop number 2 next year at the ECTL conference.
Okay.
European Conference of Technology Enhanced Learning. So there's a heavy competition for workshops there. But
I just wanted to say you accept this.
yes, but no, we have laid the groundwork, and I think we will be able to convince. So there is a slight chance that the ECTL next year will take place in Tallinn.
All right. Very good.
There is again heavy competition for that, but we'll see. So I definitely see that there is lots of interest from different communities, and there are different discourses now intermingling here around this open badges topic. But it's definitely worth to continue and try to find some common ground. People coming from different parts, like the software community side, the economic side, or the formal university teaching side, or informal side, technology side, pedagogical side. So, would you?
Yes.
Challenge.
Definitely yes. I hope to.
Yeah, but this doesn't mean that we should wait until next year to work. So can we have the email address of everybody and create a mailing list? We can provide a mailing list if needed.
Definitely. And please, whoever blogs, just blog about this. Nate, you do, right? So blog about this workshop, blog about the ideas. Whoever else does blog, I myself I don't, but I will put information about this workshop on our project website. That project that does some development of badges for soft skills. Also, if you have other ideas, not necessarily right now, please feel free to contact Jana, contact me. contact everyone in this room. Yes, we can make a mailing list. You do have our email addresses. Whoever is interested in joining this mailing list, please let us know. We'll be happy to put you on that mailing list. There's yet another idea, but it's a long-term one. Maybe over the months to come, we can sometimes organize a webinar or something that might be useful. We can also cross-link our projects on our project websites if we have any interest or relation to badges. If we have courses that do award badges, we'll be happy to cross-reference other courses that also do award badges to students. Just think about all the possible outcomes of this workshop. That will be very, very helpful. Okay.
Just do we have the address email of all the participants?
I will send you.
We send you email?
Because I never received anything from anybody.
Well, I
was
wanted
quite
to
a
show
little-
you
yeah.
I sent emails to all people, you know, I had from EasyChair, I sent emails throughout the process when we started calling for papers. People were receiving, everything.
But we have some participants here who actually...
Yeah, sure, but you know,
Yeah.
two of us
Yeah.
we had some email exchange
Yeah.
regarding these emails, and so please, I will again put it on. You can, I can write our emails, plans in mine, and you can just send us, just a short message that we can put you down in contact and make that list. I will also point out the URL, the workshop website where you can find a list of accepted papers. We cannot put the papers themselves there because they are copyrighted to Springer. But I put presentations to those people who have sent me their presentations so far. For the others, please do so. We'll keep updating this site.
One other very important thing. No topic and no community exists in an isolated world. So if you can think of related communities, related projects, related people, please talk to them as well. For example, that's just but one example, e-portfolios. There are e-portfolio communities. Think about them. Think about people who are teachers who come to meetings of their teacher associations. Just spread the word. I think that's something that should definitely go somewhere here, okay, in this team. So please, let's try to keep this going. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for your participation, and have a nice stay here in town. Thank you.